Let's talk about public services. Things like our healthcare systems, our schools, our government agencies. I want you to picture one of them as a massive supertanker. It's absolutely vital. It's carrying all of us. But man, trying to change its course, it can feel almost impossible. So let's get into it. What makes this giant ship so incredibly hard to steer?
Right? It's a frustration I think we've all felt at some point. You can see a problem, you might even see a perfectly good solution, but the system itself just seems to, well, it resists. It wants to keep going in the same direction. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and really unpack all the forces that make turning this ship so challenging.
Okay, so first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about a public service organization, what are we really talking about? Well, think of it as the government's machinery in action. These are the groups whose job it is to take public policy, the laws and ideas, and turn them into reality. They're funded by us, the public, to serve us, the public. Simple as that. Now, here is our first big idea, and it's a huge one: institutional stickiness. It sounds a little weird, but it's the perfect description. Think of it as the sheer momentum of that supertanker. It's all the unwritten rules, the habits, the culture, the "this is just how we've always done it" that creates this powerful resistance to change. It makes the whole organization want to keep chugging along on the same old path. So, if the ship wants to stay on course, what's trying to push it around? Well, it's not sailing in calm waters. It is constantly being battered by a storm of powerful forces from the outside. So let's take a look at the winds and the waves that are hitting the ship from every direction. These outside pressures really boil down to three big categories. You've got the political forces, things like party ideology and the constant demand for accountability. Then you have the economic forces. We're talking budgets, funding, and tough choices about priorities. And finally, you have the social forces, which is just us, society, and our constantly changing needs. Each one is a powerful current pulling the ship in a different direction. What's fascinating about that political force is that it often comes down to one simple question. How do you view the crew of the ship? Are public servants noble knights who are driven by a genuine desire to do good? Or are they self-interested knaves who you can't really trust and need to be tightly controlled? This one belief, this one assumption, it changes everything. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. When the people in charge adopt that knave perspective, what do you get? You get a system built on control and suspicion. Things like performance targets aren't just about being efficient, they become a political tool designed to keep a crew that you fundamentally don't trust in line. All right, next up, that constant economic pressure. Public services are basically in a permanent tug-of-war between two big ideas. On one side, you have the relentless push for efficiency, getting the most bang for your buck. On the other side, you have the absolute need for equity, making sure that those resources are distributed fairly to everyone, no matter who they are. These two are always in tension. And finally, we have social forces, which can be the most powerful of all. So what's with this number, 1/3? Well, that's the prediction that by 2036, a third of Japan's entire population will be over the age of 65. Can you just imagine the incredible pressure a change like that puts on a country's health and social care systems? That's not a gentle breeze pushing the ship. That is a full-on tidal wave. Okay, so we've seen the storm raging outside the ship, but to really get why it's so hard to turn, we've got to go below deck. We need to look at the internal machinery, the very structure that gives this supertanker its incredible and sometimes frustrating rigidity. And at the very heart of that internal structure, you'll almost always find this classic idea from Max Weber: bureaucracy. Now I know, bureaucracy has become kind of a dirty word, right? But Weber actually saw it as a highly rational, super efficient system. It was designed for one thing: stability. It's the steel frame of the ship. And this is the blueprint for that frame. Everything has a clear hierarchy, a chain of command. Actions are driven by established rules, not whims. Complex jobs are broken down into highly specialized roles. And power comes from the position you hold, not from who you are as a person. It's all designed to be stable, fair, and predictable. But what's the side effect of that incredible stability? It becomes incredibly resistant to change. And all of this leads to one massive concept: path dependency. It means that the choices made years or even decades ago have locked the organization into a specific course. The way things have always been done builds up this powerful momentum, this deep groove that makes any change of direction really, really difficult. Okay, so we've got this rigid ship stuck in its ways, being tossed around in a stormy sea. So who's on the bridge trying to steer it? Well, this is where we find two totally distinct but equally vital roles: management and leadership. And trust me, they are not the same thing. See, management is all about procedure and control. A manager organizes people to make sure the current system runs as smoothly as possible. Their power comes from their job title, from the office. Leadership, on the other hand, is the art of influence and relationships. A leader doesn't just organize people, they mobilize them towards a new vision, a new destination. Their power comes from who they are as a person. And to really turn that supertanker, you need both.
So let's say you're on the bridge. You're the captain, and you've been tasked with the near impossible job of turning the ship. What do you do? Where do you even start? Well, let's open up the captain's playbook and look at some of the core strategies for making change happen.
One of the most classic models comes from Kurt Lewin, and it's a simple three-step process. First, you have to unfreeze the old way of doing things. You have to break the ice, usually by creating a real sense of urgency. Then, you move towards the new way of working, testing new ideas, getting people excited and on board. And finally, and this is the part people always forget, you have to refreeze. You have to lock in those new habits, so the whole organization doesn't just slide back to how things were before.
Now, a leader's success with any of these strategies really depends on their core beliefs about their crew. McGregor's Theory X is the assumption that people are basically lazy, motivated by paychecks, and need that carrot and stick approach. But Theory Y assumes the opposite, that people are naturally self-motivated, that they want responsibility. It's the trust and empower approach. And the theory you believe in will determine your entire strategy. And that choice leads you directly to two very different styles of leadership. If you've got a Theory X mindset, you'll probably become a transactional leader. You'll focus on exchanges, rewards, and punishments. And that's fine for keeping things stable. But if you have a Theory Y mindset, well, that opens the door to being a transformational leader, someone who inspires people with a shared vision. And that is what you need to drive real, significant change.
Okay, so that classic playbook is still incredibly useful. But let's be honest, the seas are getting rougher, the world is getting more complex. So what new tools, what new strategies are modern captains using to navigate these new waters? Well, what's in the new toolkit? We're seeing huge shifts towards things like e-governance, moving services online. We're seeing co-production, which is this amazing idea where citizens actually help design the services they use. And we're seeing design thinking, which embraces trial and error and experimentation. But maybe the biggest change of all is a focus on compassionate leadership. The idea that to get the best from your crew, you first have to create a culture of safety, trust, and empathy. And all of this leaves us with one final big question to think about. Public services are absolutely essential to our society, but the world is changing faster than ever before. So the real challenge is this. Are we still trying to navigate these supertankers with old maps and old tools, building ships designed for yesterday's weather? Or are we finally ready to redesign them for the unpredictable storms that we know are on the horizon?